Hi everyone, welcome to the second Q&A of NUI Galway Students' Union, where we bring on the university management team. So today we're going to be having Kieran O'Huberty, the president of the university, and also Becky Way. I'm delighted to have them. You know, we've had a hard year, but we've gone through tough times, and like this year marks the 1 year anniversary even, but it's just a credit to everyone that we've gotten through so much. You know, we hear lots of stories of students helping each other, students reaching out to each other. Even the Hump Day Hoolie is just shows the success of students wanting to connect. And we're nearly at the point that we can reap the benefits of our collective efforts, that we're pushing down, you know, the cases, and we're getting the vaccine now soon. So I think the role of representation has never been so important. So that's why I think when we think of these Q&As, we need a chance to share information and, you know, listen to each other. This is why we do it. So first of all, I'm going to be just introducing Kieran. If you'd come on to say a few words.
So thank you all very much. And as Pádraig said, today, this time last year was the day I stood in the drawing room and had the sad news to share that we were closing the following morning. It came very quickly, and we didn't realize then how long it would be, and I think that was one issue for us. But secondly, how challenging it would be in the context of the impact COVID would have on the university and the community around us. But then also we didn't realize also how the extent to which particularly students like yourselves have been very supportive of each other, that the Students' Union has done great work, student services and student support. And in particular, last spring was very challenging because we had a lot of students who had to stay in Galway and couldn't go. International students in particular couldn't go home, and that was, I think, we had a lot of work to do with that group of students in order to support them. Obviously, with the exams last year, this semester, teaching and learning has been very challenging. So we really appreciate, first of all, your work and the work of your Students' Union. I said to Pádraig earlier, it's good to have a vibrant Students' Union, and we're very pleased to work with the Students' Union as much as we can. We may not always agree, but it's good always to have conversations and discussions. And then secondly, good to meet yourselves all today. We had one of these, as you know, in the first semester, and it's very good to have it in the second, and we can have another if we wish before the end of the year. And just happy to be here and to meet you all. Michelle Miller, unfortunately, couldn't be here for no other reasons other than that something else has come up that she couldn't, that she had to attend to. So I'm very pleased to welcome Becky Way, who's our Vice President for International, who particularly around maybe questions around international students might be able to deal with those as well. So Grameen Mag, stop me chin, mar tá sé an ans from our question le tosnu, so you didn't come along to hear me warbling on, but it's really supposed to be a Q&A, so that starts with Q, questions, and hopefully there'll be A, answers afterwards. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So first of all, we're just going to, we might bring up Becky too to just introduce herself real quick, and Roisin. Let's just say.
Shall I start? Thank you very much, Pádraig. It's really nice actually to be here, to be able to talk to you and to be able to answer questions. And Pádraig, the words were perfect. It's been such a hard year, and today is so poignant because it does mark a year since it was recognised that we were in a pandemic and that we were told that we would be closing the campus and going online. And it's been particularly tough for international students, but for all of us, staff, students, our families, everyone around us. So I think, but recognising that often when we're in tough times, we see the very best of people, and we've also absolutely seen that over the last year as well. So I hope that we can have some good discussions. I'm sure we're going to get some great questions, and I'm looking forward to speaking to you as we go through the event.
Thank you. First of all, we're just going to be bringing on our first questioner, and I'll me and Roisin can stay out of it for then. So the first person we're going to be getting on to ask a question will be Emma. So if Emma is or Patricia.
Hi, how are you?
Thank you.
So my question was, given how the current academic year has gone, what do you predict for next year's academic year? Just speaking as a third year student who's next year will be the final year, just wondering if you see it as being on campus, online, or a mixture of both. And the same for exams, I suppose. Do you project that they'll be on campus again, online, or a mixture? And then in that case that it does return to campus, will there be more materials available on Blackboard, say lecture recordings and stuff for students who can't attend due to various reasons, maybe COVID-19 or whatever like that? Yeah, that's my question.
We are thinking ahead to the next academic year, but I think one thing we learned this year is that we should the crystal ball should roll down a hill, because we can't really predict, but I think at the same time we can plan. And what we certainly in my mind, I would hope that we would be back on campus by September. If you think we're opening it, we open it a bit later than others in September as well, so that might help us. So the hope is that we would, including exams, and it depends obviously on how the vaccine rolls out, in particular the timing of completion of vaccine rollout. And what we've decided, and this came up at the last academic council in February, is that we would set up a group now to start thinking about the issues you talked about, particularly things like lecture capture, what the implications would be for teaching and learning in a new academic year. We've learned a lot, I think, during COVID. It's been really challenging, but at the same time, we have learned some things about particularly what students find challenging, what students find useful. And I think we need to reflect that in the next academic year. So coming up at the Academic Council in April, we've asked for that to be a discussion item, and feedback through the SU as members of Academic Council, what your preferences would be. Do we do a lot of surveying and so on about what student preferences and challenges are? But we would be keen to make, first of all, to be back on campus clearly, but also to reflect on what worked and what didn't work this year. And technology, for example, we learned a lot. We're a lot easier with it than we might have expected. And that, I think, makes it easy, and also makes it hard, but also makes it easy for some students. And I think we'd be remiss not to make use of that. There are some challenges around lecture capture, I think, that some academics find around, sensitive discussions and so on. It might be better in person, but in principle, I think it should be something we should certainly favour, and would be keen to get your feedback on that through the Students' Union at that Academic Council in April, which would then mean we'd be able to let you know by the end of semester what that would look like.
Thank you very much. Yeah, no, there is definitely, it was a hard year, definitely, but there was some pros to having lecture content online, so you could rewatch and stuff like that. And I think just amongst my classmates, that's what we all feel. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and what we're finding, and I had a small group in the first semester, but more participation, in that it's easier maybe to ask a question in the chat than it might be in a class. So there has been benefits. We've a higher retention rate, for example, this year, which again we didn't expect. So there are benefits that we should hang on to or continue with, not leave behind, for sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Miriam.
Yeah, thank you. Next, then we're going to have Cora. So Cora's going to be asking a question.
Hi, thanks for having me on. So my question is, in September of 2020, Simon Harris asked universities and colleges to publish updated action plans on tackling sexual assault and harassment by February of 2021. And my question is, have you done this? And what is that action plan? I think it would be really good to hear that.
Sure. Two things to that. Yes, so we've updated the policy in that regard, and that has been, again, we might circulate it through the SU, but certainly that is now online as regards the policy and what implications, say, reporting and so on has. So that's one piece, but policy is only effective if it's implemented. So the second piece, and we just launched that about 10 days ago, is the consent framework that we have also rolled out. And again, we can maybe make that more widely available, but Pádraig MacNeil and colleagues have done really good work with the Galway Rape Crisis Centre on education, dissemination of information, very good information about the policy and its implementation. So they'd be the two aspects in particular that we have rolled out, and the Minister was at that launch, in fact, which was along with the IUA. So they're the two aspects in particular, and we have been to the forefront. And again, the Students' Union has worked with us on this. The Galway Rape Crisis Centre have been particularly good in developing that kind of information and supports for students in that regard. So they'd be the two aspects in particular that I'd be familiar with. There may be more, but certainly I think they're important parts of it, and hope that addresses the question. And I'd say if there are other things you want us to address in this context, it's a really important issue for us. Please do let us know if there's anything in particular that we should do better in. Send me an email or Michelle an email, and we'll follow up with it.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up to that. So then who employed by the university rather than the Students' Union is there for students to report to these sorts of cases?
The policy would have that, but it's Michelle Miller in the first instance would be, but again, we might circulate the policy because that would have clear lines of reporting, but Michelle Miller in the first instance for student complaints would be with Michelle Miller. Staff there's a different track, but for students who wish to have an issue raised, Michelle would be the first point of contact.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks very much.
Hi, just to add to that last question as well, Anne Scott is currently publishing the policy on sexual harassment, which lists the contacts in each school and each
Great.
faculty, which you can report to. But yeah, hi Kieran Gurmi Limahuga, as chat to you. So just Takesh Biog Ugam, just came fa Nat Curran and Kalashta Shaw and Rangan Gaelgus Siran Ishka Erfal de McLean, is Osco Gahanga much, like Slahi and Osco and Ella, such as Trinity and Malia Haklia and Rangan Siran Ishka. So yeah, just.
Yep. Yeah, Kesh on the Wags Gramagat than old expression Shinner and K count freshen. So yeah, the schools and will also have contact lists, so those we can make those more generally available. But Michelle as well would be a very important contact. And I'd encourage people, just going back to the sexual harassment policy, I would encourage people to engage with it. We will support you. And it's something that is really important for us. So thanks on the first part of that, Roisin. Agus modulation leis na rang na Gaeilge, ein team that tá sé ráitga mahana ní dólam sa goil an scéim teanga úlmhíneach enough. An úlmhíneach go leor brunarm. Mi go hanga clefíringe. Agus mar cuid sin an scéim cónach mar hapla ní sé úlmhíneach go leor rang na Gaeilge, but chuirga meid si ar fáil níos leithne agus Sarah Nashka. So tá stratéis mar so tá stratéis nua le fáiltiú going mal sin Gaeilge. Agus ceann mar cuid sin bhhailm sa meid scéim cónach níos fearán na mar táin fáil agus takeíocht de Vicléin. Sail tre Gaeilge bheithacha gur míló agus an sin Micléin gur míló Gaeilge álam meid sin ar fáil Sarah Nashka. So sin trí rudí. Tá mí de fáil airigad hana hain modulation acadam mar hampla agus the capping came fánach me cuidan den winu sin ar fáil den Gaeilge gutine seachas mar tá sé snach a fáil láthair. Obrínta go dhéanamh an acadam mar sóldúing ach leistigh den ollscoil hain tá captain bheicmid níos mó dhéanamh le winu ón acadamh nó mar cuid breise den winu na ollscoile. So ein team that expects sin mar cuid an strategy. Must mean if anybody wants to input into the strategy for Gaeilge, please let us know when you're mean low incurve modulation strategy modulation Gaeilge. Tá sé dul an údras na hoscoil mi abran tá direct going for láthir, so sé dul an údras mi abran ag beg Roisin agus Páric an láirtrig ag an tam sin ach sin cuid táhachtach. Captain den strategy makan shog meg an Gaeilge lárnach an ollscoil mar lún tú.
You're a good Kirkler.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for that. And the next question we're going to be getting in is from Trish, our Disability Rights Officer.
Hi, it's lovely to see you all. My question is, will the distance learning support that was put in place for the students this year, will it be possible to have it as an option for students with disabilities in going forward?
Great question, and that's one of the things I'd hope that we can learn from what we've learned this year. And I think we have a meeting set up, and I'd look forward to meeting you just to talk through the supports more generally. And quite apart from, there are two aspects to it. One is we do have a public sector duty now, and we've had quite a few presentations to Academic Council and others around support for all our students, including students with disability. And so we have that's a responsibility. It's not an option, if you like. So that's something we'd be, and a lot of the supports and the technology that we currently have, therefore, we'd like to keep. But the second piece for me is this is a very profound opportunity for us to make a difference to the lives of very many people, and that's what we do, what our role is as a university. So and it's also a strength of the university that we have diverse talent, and as much talent as possible available to the university community, and we learn from each other. I think it's also a two-way street. So for all of those reasons, very supportive, and I would hope, maybe to make it a shorter answer, yes, that a lot of the supports will be there, because we must have them, number one, but secondly, because it's the right thing to do. And again, when we meet, we might liaise again on how that might look and what particular supports you found particularly good this year that you'd like to maintain, for sure.
Yeah, I have found from having calls with students that though many students want to be in college, like myself, I prefer being there. There are many with disabilities that would prefer the recorded lectures, and that they find it much easier and less stressful for themselves.
Yeah.
And it would be great if this could continue. And I look forward to our meeting next week.
Great. And one of the principles, one of the principles I think that's really important for me is that we engage with students. Every student has needs that are specific to themselves, and that we engage with students rather than assuming what's needed. So again, that sense of learning that we would have, that if there are students who need particular supports, that please do let us know, because we should find that out before putting the supports in place, rather than assuming what's needed and then finding there's a mismatch. So please do engage with us. And it's again the strength of the university that we would support all our students, and very keen to do that. So yeah, looking forward to the meeting next week with the view to progressing that.
Thank you. So next we're going to just have Barry in. So Barry, he's our society's chairperson.
Hi, Constantine here. So Tomachist actually if we run a video kind for son, video glad for game changa. As though Sean Caru game changa toigon closta. I just unkeshogum saheni no unriving garon real free game changa on corhi go young because merchant day. I just a curlishin on will down the beanie toy fake and better to simicus so gail and as I'll gory eat son. And Bedlo and Fadel Lapsa Hilaru Doson Kadian Taucht August and Cosina Iron Cheat Awesome game changa.
Yep, Keston one agus leneering around the ton game tanga town fall or the Vichy Curricay a vime new the direct on Sir Honigmeg and Ulskull. So the Boylem Marquittin Strategy agus Aaron Mocketeer Aaron Gushta going agus Sean Ganiva go the Micklin jet Marquittin Strategy new Boylen go make game tanga ni sul Vina gown. Now the V agus ní Klaus an lefering a modulation game hain ach the V court going on Commissioner Tonga rinne blina agus V kestige leferinge fui corhicht gahangak agus an brandach a harhe so mar hampla tá NUI Galway an bar agus OE Galiev a vunshin Captain Hain gomek cordon bar balagala chief sulacora boher agus gomek OE Galiev bar agus NUI Galway bun shin an Captain man ligak the smog or Honig and Commissioner Leling on Fistercon shin. So shin quidjet ta cori ta oberle denov a going Captain O'Have on Tave Shinja and Brandock a horror a gni shin cori a wanok a count hedgel litriix ready mar shin kaisha shin round freshen. Agus and three quid in shin cash modulation came tongue a hain. tá sé ráte gom hannah gur cuid anna háchtach den ollscoil an Gaeilge. No ní hé sin amháin ghfuil dúlgus oring, tá dúlgus rachtúil oring modulation Gaeilge. Ach ghfuil an Gaeilge mar cuid anna háchtach de saoil agus star na hollscoil a tá daoine cosúil am héin ach daoine fiú níos móna a héin ghfuil an Gaeilge mar cuid den féinúlaach dacha de cuid gur bhailo saoile cahabh trí Gaeilge agus mar sin go cuairúing cuasaí ar fáil trí Gaeilge, cuairúing service ar fáil trí Gaeilge, agus mar cuid an scéim nua bei sé sin mar principal ann agus mar cuid an stratéis nua. So Barlan Bridge Brenner an stratéis ar dúis agus an sin scéim a faoin a bhain, agus mar cuid an stratéis tá sé gceiste goin mar hampla go mbeidh duine in ngach ifig service in san ollscoil go mbeidh Gaeilge acha, go mbeidh an andáileáil le miléin trí Gaeilge mar hampla. Go mbeidh níos mó cuasaí ar fáil trí Gaeilge, na bhí mission seo dhéana mé mata agus gealagar sa céad bhí trí Gaeilge níl sé sin ar fáil a hiile. Tá roint cuasaí ar fáil ach níl a ggóhann darlam. So rís bhrealam de mbeidh sé sin ar fáil faoin stratéis nua. Agus mar dhéanam tá stratéis sin tá dréic an fáil láthair, tá sé ar an idirlín agus ar an sih idirlín, agus tá mí tríis hena hain nóta chumach nó gléic chumach le incoráil maidir leis an stratéis sin. So ba bhhailm dá má bhíon libh níos mó áil ann nó má rudí ann má tain bearnaí ann nó aon easta bhean show nóta cooking agus denimi díreacht iad a clúd ann agus mar dhéanam tá ar an macatír ar an gusta stratéisiach agus a rís tá sé tríis an bhean gníomhach. So either tríd éireann nó tríd an stratéis go tína Michelle ní Croní atá rithe san ifi póla orthaí feic sé go bra incoráil maidir leis an stratéis agus má tain nu a chur leis beag sé ar chur going os córan údras a hoscoil le Jeremy Abran, so tá am going fós.
Gur maith go agus an thonig súil go mór le ruí seo ecin súil go mór le gur maith.
Íntaach mí mágad.
Cool, thank you. By the way, in the chat, in the comments, in Facebook or on YouTube, you can send in questions, and if we have time, we'll be putting them in at the end as well. You can ask them in English or Irish, and you'll get the response in the same. So next, we're going to have Niamh. This is going to be an international student question. So.
Hi, Kieran. Hi, Becky. Gurmila Magul. I just have a question in relation to international students. So it's been widely noted and reported that mental health issues have been on the rise, especially this year with the challenges that in particular international students have faced, as we all know. Although there are counselling services and the chaplaincy, they're available, but their capacity is limited. So I'm just wondering, what additional services are you planning on implementing to help international students with these challenges?
Thanks very much, Niamh. Really nice to see you. Thanks for your question. So, and it's a good question. It's really not a question that's exclusive to international students. The mental health challenges that all students have faced this year have been tremendous. I was in a meeting with our head of counselling earlier this week, and actually they are coping. They're managing to arrange to speak to referrals to them within 5 days, which is really impressive. They've put more resource into the counselling, and they really are trying to make sure that they get in contact with anyone who's referred to them. There is a challenge for international students that sometimes international students don't like to say that they're struggling. They're perhaps a little bit more embarrassed, or culturally wouldn't be so find it so easy to reach out and ask for help. So we have someone within the international office who's available 24 hours a day to contact, which is another route to get access to someone who can offer support. But I would really, really encourage international students, if they are struggling, to reach out to help, because we do have resources and access available to them. The other dimension, of course, that international students in particular are struggling this year, that then knocks onto their anxiety and their mental health, is that they've come across unexpected costs and financial challenges that they weren't expecting this year. So the other thing that we've done that we haven't previously had is we do have funds available for international students to apply to for financial support. And we're looking at increasing those funds yet again, recognising that things like even just coming here and having to go through restricted movement on arrival has put more financial strain on students than they would have budgeted for in previous years. So it's a brilliant question. I think the message really is there is capacity in the system, and it's so important to ask for help when you need it.
That's great. Thank you. Thanks for answering that.
Thanks, Niamh.
Kieran.
Thank you. So next we're going to just have William on. So
hello, thanks for having me. So lately the university has been put into a tough position in regards to students voicing opinions. How does the university plan on balancing freedom of speech on campus with the safety and well-being of minority groups?
Yeah, this is a very important question, and one that we need to address. And if I'm looking right to left, I'm looking at the chat as well, and there are quite a few questions on this one. So I welcome the question. So in the email we sent out 2 weeks ago or so, we looked to address this as well. It is really important that all our students feel safe at NUI Galway, and that is something I am determined, and we are determined to support. And in that context, balancing free speech and safety of students, as you say, is a difficult question, and I appreciate that the issue not as difficult for us as it is for others, to be honest. So the university can, we're looking to support our students, because students are sometimes finding themselves in really difficult positions as well. And we do have a policy on the use of social media and on supporting students in that context. And what we were trying to say, or trying to encourage in the email we sent out, was first of all the sense that students should feel safe. But secondly, if you have an issue, there is a mechanism under the policy to make a complaint. And if you do make a complaint, we will follow that complaint without fear or favour, was the phrase we used, and we will do so. We can't, though, and we don't, and I know there's a lot of discussion around policing social media, we don't follow a complaint if we don't get a complaint. So if there are people who have issues, and I know many students have contacted me over the last while in this context, if you wish to raise an issue with us in this regard, and if you wish to be supported by the university, the policy is clear in that regard, that a formal complaint will be followed up by action by the university without fear or favour. And whichever argument is made, people should feel safe in that context, and nobody should feel threatened. I feel particularly disappointed that students would feel either that the university is a place that isn't safe for them, or that the university isn't supporting students to have a safe environment in which to have very important debates about matters education, but matters more generally as well. So please do, if you have an issue and you feel that you have been put in a position where you don't feel safe because of comments that are made, or whatever other part of the context that occurs, please do let us know, and there is a complaints mechanism which we will act upon, and as I say, without fear or favour. And I know sometimes that students are reluctant to complain or reluctant to raise issues, but we will support you, and we would wish you to raise an issue if you are feeling threatened or feeling unsafe, and we will follow up on it, as I say, without fear or favour. I don't know whether that answers the question, but that's certainly the approach we're taking, and that's consistent with the policy that was amended in February 2020, and one of the reasons was this one. So I hope that answers the question, and hopefully supports students in raising issues where those issues are causing concern, and we will follow up on them, as I say, without fear or favour.
Yeah, thank you for that.
And just there's some particular issues in the chat. I can't comment on any particular case, but we will follow up without fear or favour on any complaint. So please do raise an issue if you have an issue. Either it could be done individually, or through collectively, or with the support of the Students' Union, support of a faculty member, other students, and so on. So please do raise those issues with us, because I'm particularly concerned that if there are a group or groups who feel not supported, that is not the intention at all. We will follow up on all complaints, but we must follow up on all complaints, and we can't if there isn't a formal complaint. So that just, I think the question was a generous one about the university's position in this regard. So please do follow up, and we will, without fear or favour, support students who feel threatened.
This is Joe now. Thank you.
And yes, it's very disappointing and shocking to find that position. And we, as I say, that's why we said what we said 10 days ago, because it's very disturbing and disappointing that students find themselves in that position.
Thank you, Kieran. This is Joe, who's going to be asking a question. Go on to a different topic.
Thanks, Joe.
Hi, I'm a second year engineering rep, and my year's had a big problem with not receiving provisional grades after the university set deadline of the 18th of February. 3 weeks later, some results still aren't back. I know it's more widespread as the survey is being done by the SU, and it's happening in every college. So I have a 4-part question. Why does the university set deadlines if they don't intend to stick to them? Why do we receive our results later than other universities? Why do we not receive official grades at Christmas, as is the case in many universities? And why, if we miss deadlines, there are consequences, but if the university does, there are none?
Yeah, thank you. And again, I think you raised that question with me, and I think it was answered, by the head of school about the particular issue that I understood it was, but apologies if it wasn't. So to come back to it, there have been particular issues, a small number this year, around either faculty members, for example, being ill or not being able to submit their results in time. I would encourage, and that's something I don't know about until it's raised with me. So as you did, I think, and I did pass it on to the dean. I would encourage students who are still waiting for results to please let us know, because we'd like to follow up on that directly. There are good reasons sometimes why that is the case, but it's I think, as you say, if we set deadlines for you, my approach always has been that part of the student experience for me is that if we make promises, we should keep them, as we expect you to make promises. So yes, I would say if there are delays in issuing results, please do let us know and we follow up on that. Why is it later than other universities? In part, and that's only in part, because our exams are later. Sometimes they're and the scale of the academic calendar is set in such a way that has the timetable as it is. And the reason why they're provisional is because the exam, by, again, an academic council question, and maybe raised for academic council, but the exam boards, it's at the end of the year that the exam board finalises the results for that year. And they're issued as provisional until they're finalised either at the end of the semester or at the end of the academic year. So that's why they're issued as provisional rather than final, because it's kind of a technical question, if you like, but that's the reason why the exam board needs to approve those results before they're made final. So I know that's not addressing your particular question, which I understood was addressed by the head of school, but I'll come back to it after today, tomorrow morning, first thing, given that you did raise it with me, and we'll come back to you on your specific question around your own results in that context, if that's okay.
Thank you very much. Joe, did you have everything there answered?
Yeah, no, I did get a response from the head of school, but it was very negative and it didn't help at all. So I did raise it, and I was basically told we weren't important and the results would come out when they come out.
Okay.
And I talked more on it, but that's the response I got. And,
right. Yeah, and I can't comment really on a particular, and it wouldn't be fair in an open forum, but I'll come back to you maybe in the morning to follow up, if that's okay, or certainly before the morning. Because I appreciate you raising it. You're a very good voice at Academic Council as well, so appreciate you raising that. And I'll come back to you if I can, if that's okay in the morning. Can't comment obviously on a particular correspondence, not having seen it. So yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for answering the question anyway.
That's all. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Kieran, and thanks, Joe. So next we're going to have Michelle. So if Michelle is there for 2 questions, I believe.
Hi. Good evening. Thank you for having me here. I'd like to bring your attention to period poverty. That is a huge issue in our university, where students are finding themselves unable to provide themselves with period products, whether they be tampons or whether they be sanitary pads, and they're having to give the money for that and then not have money for food, not have money for electricity. And these things are a necessity. They are not, oh, it's it's a luxury. It's not a luxury. It is something that needs to be provided. Women need these things. Okay, it's like breathing and eating and sleeping. So I want to know what the university is going to do to improve the provision of period products for period poverty. That is really a big problem in our university right now.
Yeah, that's something I was talking to Pádraig about earlier. I think one of the things we could look at, and might come back to Michelle on, is having period products available in our bathrooms, as a matter of normal supply, if you like. So that's something I'd be keen that we engage with, and you've raised an important issue, and it, as you say, for the reasons outlined, it's important that be made available more readily. When the students' unions open, normally period products are available there, but I think it should be more widespread, more widely available. So that's something I committed to Pádraig I would come back to, or we would come back to as part of our planning around particularly return to campus. So yeah, very important, and we will deal with it.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. Just to add to that, with total empathy, thank you for raising the question, and it's a hugely important issue. And I note that in Scotland, in universities in Scotland, that they provide free sanitary products for students. So I think there's also ways that other universities in other regions are addressing this that we can learn from. And Roisin, your student welfare rep, brought this up at a meeting earlier this week, and we discussed putting together a paper to a proposition that UMT would be able to look at. So, you're hearing lots of commitments that we recognise how important this is, and we definitely want to do something about it.
I think that's a good positive we got there. Michelle, did you have a second question?
No, I didn't have a second question. But thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you today.
So next we're going to have, it's going to be either Aaron, or if Aaron isn't on the call and yet, it's going to be Niamh.
Hi, how are you keeping? Thank you for having me. As someone that suffers with chronic illness, I have benefited massively from the online learning, and I think it's something that should be implemented, as Patricia spoke about earlier, but not just for those with disabilities, definitely for those who may have had a bereavement in their semester, the trouble for catching up on notes, someone that may have been diagnosed with a new condition, that are forced into, taking a deferral of a semester or potentially a year, when they could be doing it from home, or even for students that can't afford to pay for tuition fees and accommodation at the same time, and unfortunately can't avail of third level tuition.
Yeah, that's a very good question, and again, coming back to, I think we've learned a lot about what works and what doesn't work for students, and although we know now the value of the on-campus experience, we also know that there's now technology available to us that makes it more accessible for all our students. So I'd be keen when we think about next year that we include all of those questions that you've raised. because as I said earlier, first of all, we have a public sector duty to do so, but secondly, it's the right thing to do in the context of the profound difference for students and having university available for all the talents. So again, maybe putting that back through academic council, because we will be talking in April about next year's provision and what we should keep and what we shouldn't. So again, through the Students' Union, I think it'd be very good to advocate for that, because I think it's a really important that we should learn what works and what doesn't work, and keep what works. Thanks.
Thanks, Niamh. I was just going to add to that. I think I'm probably going to say the same thing, but I think this year has created an environment where we've moved and we've changed, and keeping the best of what we've changed and not going back to how things were is going to be such an important outcome of us having had such a hard year. To have not learnt the lessons and to take the good things from that would be a tragedy. But we also, when you look in the wider educational environment, we know that having access to things like lecture capture and allowing students to be able to learn much more flexibly is actually a very positive thing. So I think that all the weight of evidence is suggesting that both we can do it, and there are really good reasons why we should continue to do this into the future. So it's a great question, and we're really looking forward to working with everyone to make sure that we do that.
And the other thing I'd say is we'd like to support you, and we know it's a challenging context, and to me this is a two-way street. So again, learning from your experience is a great phrase, experts by experience, and for us to understand what works for you, we'd be very keen to understand that and facilitate as much as we can student learning in that context. So if there's anything in particular, obviously through the Students' Union, but directly to me as well, if we can support you in any way.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
And thanks for that. So next we're going to have Fionn.
Hi there. So my question is about CAME. So I've utilised CAME myself as a first year, and I found it to be absolutely tremendous. It's really helped my learning and helped socialising in this kind of crazy year that we've had. And I've seen that on the NUIG Confessions page, a lot of first years have been talking about how amazing it is for them, and they've really been pushing it as something that has tremendously helped them. So I would just like to know, will CAME be expanded to all first years?
Yeah, CAME has been very good, and I know it's been growing beyond, it started in one college and then grew beyond that. And the answer I would, as part of our strategy, part of it for me is mentoring, and that means CAME is one of those frameworks, if you like. So yes, I would hope that it would be. And again, I'd maybe encourage you to talk with the college deans in particular about how that might work, because it's working in some colleges, and expanding it beyond those would be excellent, I think. So the answer would be, to me, yes, and looking forward to seeing how we can do that. I've been also keen that we should mainstream CAME. It's been, every year has been looking for funding in order to continue, and part of what I've been trying to do since I came here to Galway is to mainstream CAME, because again, because of the value it has for many students. LIFT is the other program I think we've developed this year, which has some similar principles, which I think has been working well too. So I guess to put a short answer, yes, I would hope that we would, and liaising with colleges, I think, particularly important in that regard.
Thank you very much, Fionn. Next, we're going to be going on to Rob. So Rob is a part-time student.
Hello, thank you for having me. So you might not be able to tell, but I'm a mature student, and I'm on one of the part-time courses, and I'm the student rep for my year. A lot of us feel that as part-time students and as mature students, we've been ignored with a lot of the supports that have been put in for the full-time students. For example, on our course, we have to do placements as well, but we have to find them ourselves, whereas people like this full-time student nurses, they have the placements found for them. We have to source our own, and when we couldn't some of our students were told, well, you can either take a leave of absence or you can defer it, without being offered any kind of support. And some of them really struggled. A lot of the students have deferred to the next year, which means come the start of the new year in September, the course is going to be inundated with all the students that have left my year. So I'd just like to know what has been done to make sure this kind of thing doesn't happen again. It's too late for us, but what's also being done to support those students, because you're now going to have double the number of students on one of the courses. Are they going to get the same kind of time and dedication that we saw in our first year?
Yeah, great question. And I think placements in general have been very challenging. I think you know, I think in particular that's not hasn't been a great experience for you and your fellow students. So that's not right. And I know there's been some comment around dealing with things. Can you maybe, we might liaise afterwards on where the issue, what programs are involved, and where we might actually intervene, because again, people are saying in the chat, well, he's saying he'll deal with things, but if I don't know about them in advance, I can't deal with them in the moment. But I'd be very happy to follow up afterwards. So you might send an email in, maybe, and cataloguing the issue in particular and what programs and how we can support better. As you say, for next year in particular, we'd probably need to then put an infrastructure, maybe additional resources in order to support students in finding placements, given, as you say, that there'll be more students looking for likely either the same number or even maybe smaller number of placements than normal. So, but would be keen. One of the principles again is that all students should have the same opportunities, part-time or full-time, and on that basis would again like to follow up on that with that in mind, if that's okay.
A lot of it feels for us, like a lot of us, because we're mature students and all of us on the course are also working full-time. It all feels a lot like it's, well, do you know what? They're fully grown adults. They're holding down a job. They'll be fine. We don't need to worry about it. But unfortunately, we're holding down jobs. We're holding down families. We're holding down trying to, take part in the course as well. And it really has been a struggle. So I will take you up on that, and I'll be in touch. It'd be nice to see what's being done for the students that are coming after us. Yeah, great, and thanks for raising that. And again, I see in the chat some people are saying, he'd look into it, and what generally, if something comes into me, I send it on to the people involved, and I expect them to reply. Sometimes they send me a reply, sometimes they don't. So this is quite apart from this question. If you do send me a question, I will deal with it. If you don't hear from somebody, come back to me within about 10 days or 2 weeks, because I'll follow up, because it's not good enough that if I send something to a colleague expecting to respond and they don't, I think they have when they haven't. So not particularly this case, but given that I'm committing here to following up on this one, I thought as a general comment, I'd say that I do follow up. But I expect when I send something to a colleague that they've replied, and if they haven't, let me know within about 10 days or 2 weeks, and I'll make sure they do. So this particular one, I know that's a general comment, but on this one, please do come back to me, and we'll deal with it. And as say, particularly planning ahead for next year, you're right. It would be good to start that now rather than wander into next year expecting it to be different. I will. Thank you very much for that. Great. Thanks, William.
Thank you. So now we'll be going on to questions that were sent in, and also we'll be looking at the chat. So hopefully we can get through these in a quick enough amount of time as well. So the first one I'm going to be asking is it's for Becky. Sorry, I've got the wrong one. Sorry. No, this one's for Kieran. In the previous Q&A, it was mentioned that the university would be writing to Court na Corba accommodation surrounding the refunding of students. I would like to hear if this was followed through and has there been little to no communication from Court na Corba on the situation? So just basically, an update kind of on what would the next stance be on these, because... Sure.
Yeah, and again, myself already spoke about this morning. So we did write collectively and individually to all the landlords, the major landlords earlier, at least twice this year, encouraging them to look after, to be decent to our students, if you like, particularly in the current context. Without commenting particularly, again, reluctant to comment on or name one particular accommodation provider. But for any of those who have not been supportive of our students, I have asked this afternoon that they be taken off the list of student accommodation that is recommended by the university, and I've been given assurances that they will be. If they haven't been already, certainly it will be over the next few days. So so again, without being specific about it, we have written to all private accommodation providers asking them to support our students. For students in particular that needed to leave Galway or couldn't come to Galway because of COVID, the decent thing to do was to give students back deposits and or rent in that context. For those that didn't do the decent thing, we will not have them on the list next year of recommended accommodation. And that, I think, is a signal from the university of what our view is of it. We'll continue to work with the Students' Union to see if there's anything else we can do. You know, that you could say that's an empty act, if you like, but there's only so much we can do. And we talk to the SU about any other action we would take in that regard. And again, anybody who wants to raise any of that with us, please do let us know and we'll work through it. But we will take them off the list. They will not be recommended by the university in future.
Thank you for that, Kieran. So next, just Roisin's going to ask a couple of questions as well.
Hiya, so Takesh agam o Erin McIntyre. So it's a well plan a good core to her strategic Gaeilge Ostri Fui Lahar Mar Louis Game Changa Murwell Kahan a May tus Kurher Leshaw.
Yep, agus tá Erin Shanskwa sé branu tá rifos Kurhagam Kugam Modula Shin Hanahain. Yeah, so tá plan going tá sé gest going agus a rish Luke Anna Roisin Shkame Changa in Snowholskon Ella. Agus tá Ifika Gaeilge since Holskon Ella Nachwil and Shaw. So the Carcamek can den Akan Aliv. So tá sé gest going Gamek Corridor Changa Kappa. Tá sé beg sé tá mi just Brenner or Connors mar vec sé winu modulation meg sé last signo last mid an akad of mar hampla ach tá sé gest going meg an corridor shinaun agus gemeg during hang tá sé mar quid an strategish a rish meg doleg an udras mi abron gemeg meg sé foker Bajer Lewis as Saura agus gemeg dinna fusta have fightus an Kate blin akadulella should have gest agus dollarashig and cash modelish aber le rang na Gaeilge vec sé mar dulgas ar dinne sin mar hampla service sheet through Gaeilge Kirk and Keen rang na Gaeilge a Kirk and Keen agus Kirkwigel modelish and Gaeilge general snolskol vemar quid and dulgas sin mar vin sé snolskol na Alex be Kirk mek sin show freshen. So the capping ta my soul mek dinne an fai tus and blin and Kate blin akadulella.
Agus Kesh Ella for Becky. It's what support or reparations do you have planned for international students for financially burdening us by telling us to travel and get accommodation? Non-EU international students have to pay our dues in full before even registering for our modules, which forces us to take loans in order to pay. International students need extra emotional and financial support during this pandemic from NUI, which they feel they have not got. You're mute.
The additional support. So there has been a lot of additional support put in place, but as ever, we don't always manage to reach everyone who feels that they need it. So right from the start of this from this time last year, we really recognised that this was going to be a huge challenge for international students. At that point, we ended up finding that we had over 1,000 international students who had remained in Galway when we went into lockdown, either because they couldn't travel back to their country or weren't able to. And at that point, we put financial aid in place for them, but we also triggered off a whole process around following up and calling international students who we knew were still here in the region to ask if they were okay and what they needed. And so we've really, really tried to continue that process of looking after international students, recognizing that you come to a different country, that you find yourself in restrictions, and it's very, very challenging. You know, it's challenging to integrate into society. It's challenging to understand what the rules are. So there's been a lot of activity which has been about, how do we help international students make friends and form connections in this really difficult circumstance? So that work is ongoing, it's continuing, and as I said previously, we've put more and will hopefully continue to put more money into financial aid for students who have met unanticipated expenses and costs because of the restrictions and the requirements that have been placed on them. I noticed there was a question about where do you apply for that? You apply through the normal financial aid system, regardless of what it might say on the website. That's the process to follow, and the website's being updated with that information at the moment. And then in return, in terms of the fee question, so the challenge for us is that we actually tried to create the most flexible environment that we could. So we have international students who haven't actually come to Ireland at all and have done their study online for various reasons, because they've chosen not to or because they couldn't obtain a visa. We also this year introduced them being able to pay their fees in instalments. So again, trying to recognise the challenges that students were having, particularly in accessing finance, but in their home countries and when they arrive here. So again, we've tried to be as flexible as possible. What we do have is a sticker price, as you might call it, for what we're offering. And what we're offering is a degree, a qualification, an education from a top 1% university in the world. And that hasn't changed. The experience may have changed, but the offering hasn't changed and the outcome hasn't changed. That at the end of this, you still have an education from a top quality and a qualification from a top quality university. So I think that's important. And the other thing to recognise is that while you might imagine it becomes cheaper for us to go online in our education, it really doesn't. In fact, when you look at what sits behind online teaching, there's an awful lot more administration, there's an awful lot more investment in online technology. So our single biggest cost as an institution is our academics and our teaching staff, or it's our people. Sorry, it's not just our academics, it's our people. And that hasn't changed because we're teaching online. So the sticker price for the education is still valid. Sorry, I'm not sure. There were quite a lot of components to that question, Roisin. Have I picked them all up, or is there anything else that I needed to touch on?
I think so. I think the main issue was the fact that the university told students to come here, and then of course the international students pay so much more and didn't get that, they don't feel like they got the full education or like the full experience. I think he answered it.
For sure. I will come back on that though. I think, thank you. I think when we were looking at the start of this academic year, no one imagined that we would all be online, and we were working to open up the campus. We were working like mad to figure out how to open up the campus as much as we possibly could. And what we were hearing from international students is that they wanted to come here and that they wanted to have a campus experience. So what we tried to do at the time was to enable that to happen, but also to give the option for them to learn online if that was what they preferred to do or needed to do or couldn't get here. So I think there's a little bit of a difference in perception in that when students said they wanted to come here, we had to issue them with a port of entry letter that said that they needed to be on campus. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been allowed to land in Ireland. So that we really, really wanted students to have a campus experience, and we were really hearing from international students that that's what they wanted. And it wasn't our choice to shut down the campus. We have to align with public health advice. But despite that, we're still working as hard as we can to give the quality education, and the outcome is still going to be the same, a high quality degree from a high quality university. So I have huge sympathy for all of our students who've not had the experience, who've really struggled this year, but we're in the situation we're in, and let's hope that next year we're in a better situation. But thank you very much for the question. It's a great and really important question.
Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. It'll be me and Roisin asking questions back and forth between the chat and the ones that were sent in for now. So the next one, this is an interesting one. At the last Q&A, you mentioned, Kieran, that the Irish universities need the equivalent of the secondary school's Donna O'Malley, who called for and got free secondary school education for Irish students. Are you willing to be that Donna O'Malley and call on TDs, regardless of party, to act on free third level education? I can't hear. Oh, 1 second.
I'll say what I said again. Yes, this year I'm the chair of the IUA Council, so the Irish University Association, 7 universities, and we have been working very closely with the department and the new minister in order to progress investment in third level. Different from before, certainly I am not advocating for that funding be through fees. My own view is, and always has been, that in particular there are students who can't afford to come to university and they shouldn't be asked to pay. And I've published some articles on this already, some with the Students' Union previously. So the answer is yes. Simon Harris has said that this is the year that investment in third level will be addressed. We have a very energetic minister, one who's really supportive of students, as we can see and as we know, and I will be encouraging him along and to invest in third level education, but not through fees. That's, I don't think, is the approach that has been advocated by me for sure. And I think the investment it's a public asset, and particularly undergraduate education is now of a benefit so broadly that it is what, as I mentioned before, what second level was in the 60s, third level is now. And this is the opportunity to invest in it and make a huge difference. Imagine the difference it would make to invest in third level education to the extent warranted. And I think I made the point then that the people who are paying for the underinvestment primarily are students, paying through the fee and paying through the experience they might otherwise have had if the investment was greater. And I think that's not right, not appropriate. And so again, to come back to a shorter answer, yes. And I'd be happy to work with Porrick through the IUA with USI to make that point as the year progresses.
Thank you. Roisin, do you want to do the next one?
Yeah. So this is on the topic of no academic disadvantage. So does NUIG intend to allow students to voluntarily take repeat exams to try and improve their grades in modules that they struggled in, and waive repeat fees, as most of the other colleges have done already?
Yeah, just on the repeat fees issue, this has been an issue throughout the year, and again, what we're doing there with the repeat fees is, and governing authority has debated this. What we'd like to do as a principle is really support students in need, and therefore, in the context of repeat fees, what we decided to do was to extend financial assistance and make the repeat process and paying of repeat fees where they would be paid more flexible. And for example, before, if you didn't pay repeat fees, you couldn't progress. We took away that particular constraint and so on. So we made that, we tried to accommodate as much as possible that process. But the principle we had around that in particular is equity, in the sense that there are some students who really need help, repeating students and other students more generally, and we would focus our resources on those students in need, and that's the approach we took. So that's the and the financial assistance fund has been extended. Students who have who need financial assistance, please do let us know, and please do apply through that fund, because that's the intention, is that you would be supported in that context. And then secondly, going back to the no academic disadvantage, again, this is a really challenging question, because again, what we're trying to do is to be, first of all, to be equitable to all students. There are the students who will go through in one exam or one process and get a mark, and even when I was a student, it was possible at that time to do what you're suggesting, and some students took advantage of that. And to me, there's a sense of equity in the saying that we need to be equitable to all students, those that pass first time and don't come back to repeat the exam is the first issue. Secondly, we need to be very careful, going back to Becky's question around the quality of the degree. In other words, that if we allow quality to slip, well, then it doesn't do the university or our students any favour to think that they're then do we want the class of 2020 to be thought of as any different than any other, or the class of 2021? I don't think so. And thirdly, looking at the results, and this is something we've looked at very carefully. Last year, there were about half the number of students repeating as there would be in any normal year last summer. And this year, generally, grades are higher than they would normally be. So in the round, it doesn't seem that there are issues in the round. Now, clearly, there are issues for individual students and issues, really challenging times for students. But what we're finding with the evidence is that it doesn't support the sense that we would need to have students repeating to get higher grades, because grades in general are higher than they would normally be, and all kinds of reasons for that. So that's the rationale. I'm trying to explain what I know is a difficult context to understand, but to me, and this is why I've been quite steadfast on this, that the most important one for me is we would support students most in need, and in order to do so, we would focus resources on those students most in need, rather than more generally through just waiving a repeat fee for some students who don't need it. And I recognizing there are some students who do, and we would support them and other students in need also. So that's the background to the decision. I know we disagree on it, but that hopefully gives the rationale for it. Yeah, that's the background to it, and we as you know, we've had discussion on it over the year, and that's the background to it. The academic disadvantage is an academic council decision. So again, the academic council standing had a debate on that, decided what's been decided, and again, academic council would be the proper place. The president of the university can't decide those kind of issues, but academic council could. So again, could be raised there if needed.
Yeah, I think just to answer that, I think you said that with the year 2021 shouldn't be treated differently. I think they should be treated differently given the year that they've had it. Like, treating them differently isn't necessarily a negative thing. And then on we're waiving it for the vulnerable students. I mean, I don't think university management can take credit for that. I think that came from the Financial Aid Steering Committee recommendations from if the students hadn't caused such an uproar, I don't think it would have been on the table.
We asked for that. So
encouraging people to apply to the financial aid fund. That financial aid fund is actually being used as a landlord hardship fund at the minute, because students are paying rents for accommodation they're not using.
Yeah, no. So to come back to the university management team, asked specifically that to be addressed by the financial aid committee. So that was actually, I'd accept that it was an issue raised by the student team, but very early on we asked for, that was the principle we were working on, is that we would support students most in need. And I'm not saying, and by no means am I saying that 2020-21 isn't different, but given that grades overall are higher than they would normally be, do we want employers of the future to say, well, that 2021 year was the easy year? I don't think that would serve us well. Because it's not the easy year, by no manner of means is it. But so that's one of the issues being one of the considerations, if you like, in the context of those questions of academic disadvantage, for example. So I think, and I think we're trying to get to the same outcome. We're trying to support students, but in different ways, with different principles, if you like, involved. Is how I see it. Now, that may not be how everybody would see it, but that's the rationale for that kind of decision.
I think we're probably just going to have to move on from repeat fees. I don't think we'll agree on it. I think that's it's been the one thing. I'll go on to a question on sustainability. So last year we introduced, we just launched the sustainability sustainability strategy, and it was previously brought up about the Coca-Cola contract and plastic bottles. Has there been any update on this?
Yeah, so we launched a sustainability strategy last week or this week, and that to me has been a strategy that's been developed by the university community. So whatever is in it is what has been proposed by the university community. At the last meeting, it was mentioned about single-use plastic bottles, and I still favour that. I think we should. It's a really important issue, and I think at the time we mentioned that there are contracts in place with suppliers such as Coca-Cola, and those contracts we can't dishonour. But once a new contract is in, one of the things we have, for example, in the strategy is that for all procurement, we would have within it a requirement for decent working conditions, first of all, and secondly, good environmental practices, to me, which would include, for example, single-use plastic bottles. So that's how that, I know it was raised before, but that's how that will work itself through, is in the next contract. Those will be conditions of procurement to get the contract. And the strategy has that as part of its thinking.
Thank you. This is just one then from the chat, is can you comment on the 2 meetings held between yourself and the Chinese ambassador in April, and between April and September 2019, the nature of the trip? I imagine people are just interested. And any links being pursued with Minzo University?
Gosh, Becky might know the answer to the latter half of that. I mean, there is a development in research, in particular around regenerative medicine, that has been progressed through the formation of Confucius Institute, and we've also become, and this is, I think, a very good development, we've become part of the signed up to the Chinese scholarship, the CCS system, where Chinese students can be supported by their government to come here and study for a PhD. Those are the 2 issues I think were addressed in that context. Becky might be able to add on the third one. Minju University, I'm not familiar with, so I don't know whether Becky is either. I don't know.
I'm not. So my apologies for that one. That's not one that's on my radar at the moment. If there's a conversation going on about that.
And just to make a general point there, again, coming back to a principle, education and transnational, international collaboration, and I think in Europe the European mission or movement has been a particular beneficiary of this, by working together with people in different countries. Education has a great benefit, and I think by engaging we can learn from each other, and we can address issues, which there are issues always. So that's a principle I think important to think about, is the role that education plays in advancing human endeavour, advancing human understanding between different countries and different nations. And I think that's a really important part, a role that universities can play, quite apart from the politics. And obviously, as part of that, you can also address political issues. But the particular background, the 2 issues or the 2 developments we've had in that context is the development of a research collaboration in regenerative medicine, which is again, and given the space that it's in, is particularly beneficial to, I won't overstate it by saying humankind in general, but also to NUI Galway. And then secondly, the CCS scholarships, which again provide opportunities for students to come and study with us, and are particularly beneficial. So they're the 2 particular developments in that context that I think were very beneficial, and for the reasons outlined, the role of education in international understanding and cooperation, I think, are good outcomes.
Cool. Thank you. I'm sure he can follow up with that to your email too, if you want more information. Roisin, do you want to?
Yeah, there's a question here asking if can the provision of microwaves be added to catering tenders?
Yeah, and again, we talked to that Park about that. Yes, so potentially yes, we could look at that. And now, obviously, in the current context, challenging in that campus isn't open to a great extent, and congregating around microwaves not advisable. But yes, we would plan to do that in future. Yes.
Perfect. And just on that, which is similar enough, which is water fountains, can we please get some water fountains in the library? You said before Christmas that it would be done before Christmas or post-Christmas at earliest.
Yeah, and I guess the part of the context for that is we thought before Christmas that we'd be back on campus more than we are. So there's the two parts. One is the students back on campus, but secondly, the ability to do work on campus is very much curtailed in the context of the current limitations around COVID. So the thinking we had is we would put that kind of information, or we need to put foot pedals around the water fountains is the main issue, I think, particularly in the context of COVID and the health and safety issues around the water fountains. So the reason why they weren't put in primarily is because, first of all, we made the promise before Christmas, but before Christmas was a very different planet in that we thought we could do more after Christmas. We ended up doing less. So as we begin to do more work on campus, as we can do more work on campus, because we can't right now do a lot of the work we'd like to do, we will then insert more water fountains. It's been, I think, one of those ones where it comes up so often that it's a really important issue, because we know that, given the extent to which it's raised. So again, yes, but the issue has been around what work we could do on campus with current low COVID restrictions.
Thank you. Roisin, do you want to ask the Erasmus questions that came in from the chat?
Yeah, so there's a question here. Why is it that outbound Erasmus and foreign exchanges for 2021 were cancelled? However, many inbound exchanges continued to happen and take place during both semesters. And another concern is that someone's Erasmus year is next year and they're worried that it will be cancelled again.
Great, thank you. Thanks for asking those questions, and it's a really important issue. So looking back first before we look forwards, the question about outbound versus inbound, let's look at outbound first. So when we really wanted students to be able to go outbound on their Erasmus and work placements last year, and we tried really hard to find a way of making it happen, maybe too hard for too long in retrospect. But the challenges that we face are that the European Union asked governments to recognise student mobility as an essential travel, but the Irish government didn't recognise that. So you get a real challenge when you're trying to tackle something which isn't recognised as essential travel, and there's a government advisories that says no essential travel. And the knock-on effect of that is that there's real questions about whether it's possible then for students to obtain health insurance that would adequately cover them, particularly if they were to find themselves in a situation where they contracted COVID in another country. And then alongside that was the challenge of, we really were concerned about the experience that students would have if they travelled on placement, because, you know, going to another country and finding yourself shut in a room and doing your learning online is really not ideal. So there were a whole bunch of reasons why, when we looked at it, it really wasn't possible for us to really send students to have the experience they should have and to do that safely. And safety was the absolute bottom line on this. Now, when you look at incoming students, the difference is that other countries were looking at that and making different decisions. And part of that was because other countries recognised Erasmus and mobility as essential travel. So that was why inbound students to us were able to travel to us. We've tried to kind of keep the doors open and give people as much access and opportunity as we can. We can discuss whether that was the right thing to do and whether those students who've come to us have had the best experience or the experience that they hope they would have. I hope they've got something positive out of it, but certainly I would rather that they had come to a place which wasn't in a lockdown for their experience, you know, so I hope we've done them some service and not too great a disservice. So when we're looking forward to next year, we have huge numbers of students who are hugely anxious and have huge expectations about travelling for next year. And there's two types of anxiety. So there's the students who really want to go and the students who probably are slated to go but are very anxious about travelling at the moment. So we have to deal with that real kind of dichotomy of expectations. What we're looking at the moment, and what in fact we're meeting about this morning, was, is this going to be possible? Can we support this? Our sense is that we really want to be able to support outbound placement and student mobility onto Erasmus programmes. We haven't made a final decision on that yet, but we're going to be making one very soon. And again, the bottom line is always safety for us. But the numbers are big this year because we had students who wanted to travel last year and weren't able to and have deferred, plus the students who want to travel this year. So it's a really, really live issue with us, and we're doing our best at the moment.
Yep, thanks.
Thank you. And I'd just like to thank Kieran and Becky for continuing to stay on and answering these questions. We really do appreciate it. So I got two on kind of internships and kind of placement again. So first one is, students in Shannon are expected to go on placement in the summer, even though it seems unlikely that these will go ahead. The college refuses to look at any alternatives. Would you push them on this? Just.
Yeah, I again, unfamiliar with the context. I mean, I think placements are very important for Shannon, and for that reason, we've kept placement and support for placements going. Again, happy to have that conversation if somebody wants to send me an email, or whoever's asking the question wants to send an email directly on it. Without knowing the context, it wouldn't be fair to comment further, but happy to do that. And I'd say again that if you send me an email, what I do is I send it on then to whoever is responsible for it, and I expect them to answer. And sometimes they CC me, sometimes they don't. So if they don't answer within 10 days or 2 weeks, please do come back to me, because I do expect colleagues to answer questions like that. So again, come back to me, on that one in particular. We've been supporting Shannon to maintain placements, because it's a really important part of the education experience, obviously, in that particular subject and that area. And we'll support whatever is needed in order to keep that going. But again, with the particular context, happy to liaise if I get more detail.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. And I think this is one of those ones where there is a real challenge, that we have some students who are very anxious to go on placement and some students who are very anxious about going on placement. So we have been working with the head of Shannon College, and this has been very much integrated into the conversations and the work that we're doing at the moment about how and what will happen in relation to student travel next year. So we are absolutely working on it at the moment, and I have had quite a lot of communication about the level of anxiety that this is causing for students in Shannon College.
Thank you, and it's good to know it's on the radar, especially. So this one is, I might help give context. So what is the President's view on the cuts in the 2021 internship posts by the HSE? Would you be willing to publicly support the campaign held by final year medical students? So this is last year they created 400 extra posts in the HSE, but these are actually going to be cut now. And then students who would have been getting an internship now would have to look to other countries if they don't get one here. So it's to look for it to be retained.
Yeah, I'll take that up with. We have regular meetings with our own department, and obviously the minister there, Simon Harris, was the previous Minister for Health, and the Secretary General, Jim Breslin, was the previous Secretary General in Health, so they're familiar with the context. So I'll raise that with them, because one of the things we have been saying to them, first of all, is clearly for students in health-related disciplines, there's particular opportunities now, given what we know about how we should have valued our health service more than we did in the past. And for international students in particular, there have been challenges with placements in Ireland and then internships after graduation. And there's a real opportunity to keep talent in Ireland. And so for those two reasons, I'll raise that with them, with the view to then raising it with the HSE and the Department of Health. They probably give good advice on how that might be done. So yes, I'll join that particular campaign if there is one to be had. Conscious of the challenges of the health service, and that might be it as regards some of the issues that might be faced, but certainly happy to support and help students in that context.
Perfect, thank you. So this is another one on just next year. So when will next year's type of education, online, blended, physical, or online just for the start, be decided? We found out too late last summer, and students can't be stuck in the same situation with accommodation.
Yeah, gosh, and I mean, the most difficult. I've been 25, 26 years in academic life, and I will look back on last August, September as the most difficult time, and we had to make decisions. We had hoped to open, and then at the last minute, were told that we couldn't, and there were good reasons for that. So one of the things I've learned, it's very reluctant to try and, as we said earlier, to have a crystal ball out too early. We will try and tell you as soon as we can. I would expect that we would, and I mentioned earlier that the Academic Council meeting of April will give some guidance as regards the expectations of what certainly the technology and the continued use of technology might look like. And I think we probably know more now about what's possible online and what's not than we did, let's say, last September. So all I can say is that as soon as we can, I would imagine that by the end of the academic year, so by April and May, we will have formulated some plans in that context. We hope at this stage that we'll be looking at a different year than we did this year, and certainly that's that would be my expectation. But we do the best we can to tell you early. But one of the things we learned, we were very, and going back to what we were saying, some of what Becky said, what we were saying last August and September was very much in the hope and expectation, because students were asking to be on campus, that we would be on campus, and at the last minute, for all kinds of reasons, we couldn't accommodate that. So we'll try and tell you as soon as we can. The April Academic Council meeting, I think, will help us very much in guiding what the academic year might look like. And after that, we let people know. But certainly by the end of the academic year, so by April and May, so that people can plan for next year as best as possible. And I'm not. It's been a really difficult year for everybody. So this is in the scheme of things, the difficulty of this one. I'm not saying it's been hugely difficult, but it is a very challenging context for us to plan for next year, and we try and do it as soon as we can.
Thank you. The next question then is, last semester you said you were going to extend the 250 to international students to cover medical costs, but nothing has been done yet. Do you still intend to do this?
Yeah, so Becky might answer this one as well, but what we did there was, again, in the context of supporting students in need, we through the Financial Assistance Fund is where we decided to put that investment and that support. And again, irrespective of what it says on the website, that is open to non-EU students, and that's exceptional. Up until and government funding goes towards EU students only for the Financial Assistance Fund. We have extended that beyond that, recognising the challenges for international students. And again, we would encourage you, as we have before, if you have challenges, financial or otherwise, please do let us know, because we would like to help. And Becky might come in on the particular mechanics around that, but again, that's how we thought best to do it, was through that fund rather than kind of on a blanket basis.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I don't have a huge amount to add. I've said it a couple of times. We have the funds for international students to apply for assistance, and that's really recognising the unexpected costs, or that many of our students, international students, are on a tight budget. They've worked out what it's going to cost them to come here for a year, and then they found themselves social distancing, paying for broadband at home, having to turn their heating on when it was really cold, expenses that they hadn't accounted for. So we've got the assistance fund open. You can apply through the financial aid fund in the normal way, and we're also looking to augment that fund, still recognising that these financial challenges are ongoing for international students.
Thank you. Next, Roshan's going to go back asking some questions.
Hi, a question for Kieran. So what steps are the university, not the SU, what steps are the university taking to firstly ensure a safe and welcoming environment for minority groups, LGBTQ+, ethnic minorities, etc., both on campus and within the student community? And secondly, what are the university doing to combat hate speech on campus and off campus towards NUIG students?
Good question. And I think we've signalled this in some of the recent correspondence, and again, supporting and a lot of this is signalling, but a lot of it is also we need to do it, in more meaningful ways, supporting LGBTQ plus students and minority students through the policies we have, which we mentioned already. So it is not acceptable to undermine or disrespect any group on campus. We are committed to diversity. Diversity is a hallmark of any university, but NUI Galway in particular. I am determined as university president that we will not tolerate any disrespect of any minority group or any group, minority or majority. And we have in place the policies in order to protect students and support students in that context. And we will not, neither will we tolerate hate speech or undermining or disrespectful speech. Coming back to the original point around the policy, in order for us to act on that, and we will, we need, students need to alert us to it and to formally complain, because otherwise we've no grounds on which to act. So that's the piece I would put at the end, that, we've said it earlier, but in this context we'll say it again, that students who feel disrespected, undermined, threatened, this is not acceptable. It is not the hallmark of a university that I would wish to be president of, and we will. We have policies in place that support students in that regard, either by contacting me directly, but more what I do then is I pass it on to Michelle Miller, because she is the person to whom complaint should be made, and she will then request a formal complaint, because absent that we've no grounds. So that's I think that the step that we would support students through that process if and when that arises. So please, again, to come back to it, we've had a lot of signalling, a lot of statements in this regard, a lot of things that we've said in support of students. We also wish to have meaningful action, and in order to do that, that's the policy that's there is what supports that. And also, if you need me to turn up in more ways than one to anything that supports that sense of respect we have for all our students, and that sense of diversity that we would support as a university, please do let me know. But the policy needs, if there's somebody who feels disrespected, or where there's a subject of hate speech, the policy supports that, and I would encourage students to follow the policy in that context. I hope that answers the question, because I really do want to make the point that it is completely unacceptable, and we will not tolerate it, and we will follow up on it. I notice without fear or favour was mentioned as something I say regularly. That is the case. I say it often because that is true. But we need students to alert us to it, and then provide us with the grounds, if there are grounds, to pursue it.
Just a two-part really quick follow-up to that. Number one is, if hypothetically a student compared the LGBT community to the KKK, do you think that they should be brought to discipline if a complaint was made? And second of all, if someone does submit a formal complaint, how long do you think is the standard time that they should hear back?
I can't comment on the hypothetical. To be fair, I think that's raising a question where I wouldn't want to undermine or prejudge, or there are risks to commenting on particular cases, because then you undermine a process that might follow. So I can't comment on however hypothetical a case. But I would reiterate that hate speech and denigrating speech, disrespectful speech, is not acceptable, and we will not tolerate it. And there is a time frame in the policy that if a complaint is made, so not when the hate speech is made or published, but when the complaint is made, there's a time frame in the policy that's very clear in that context, and I would expect we'd follow that time frame. I'm not dodging the first question, but there have been cases where if you comment on a particular case, then it undermines a process which follows, and I'm determined not to do that. So I think whatever process follows should remain intact by me not commenting on any particular hypothetical or otherwise issues in that context.
Thank you. We'll do about 3 more questions, and thank you again for giving us your time. So the NUI Galway student levy is primarily used to fund recurrent costs and services for students. Other institutions fund these services without a levy. Why can't NUI Galway be the same?
Well, I mean, I think finances are, some funding comes from, we do other things with some funding, and funding is allocated in particular ways. Some institutions allocate their funding in one way, and we do in another way. In effect, most other institutions have a student levy of some form, and if it doesn't go towards recurring costs for student activities, it goes towards something else, which then we probably spend our money on. If like so, this is trying to answer it in a way that's coherent. But effectively, you get your funding in and you allocate in various ways. Some universities allocate the student levy towards particular activities, which we probably fund from the central funding, from our own funding, and we tend to allocate the student levy in the way we do, and then allocate differently than other universities. So it's I think the student levy for the most part goes to support student activities, and that's what it's there for. That's the agreement we have with the student union in that context. So I'm not sure that's answered the question in detail, because I'm reluctant to comment on the university because I don't know. Other universities allocate their funding in different ways. But that's how we do it. That has been since time immemorial. The way we allocate the student levy, and again with the students' union agreement in that context. So that's the explanation for it, I guess, without comparing ourselves with others.
Okay.
Hard question at this at the end of the day. Yeah. Okay.
I think Roisin dropped off, but the next one was going to be on. Sorry. Will we have any labs or practicals this semester? As a science student, I feel like I'm missing out on much, and no one knows if and when we will be able to practice laboratory skills. How come other universities have managed to hold on to campus practicals for their students, but NUIG hasn't?
Yeah, good question. So yeah, we've for the most part, when we came back in January, the case numbers in Galway were very high. And I'm on the SAILTA board, and obviously through the GP, the medical service on campus, we were conscious of that, and for that reason, we curtailed our labs were available for final years and postgraduate students, postgrads because it's the only year for labs, and final year students particularly for projects. We would plan or would hope that we would open up labs more widely as the semester progresses. I know the college has plans in that regard. The timing of that remains to be seen, but certainly we would hope that we would be opening up labs for students as we did in the first semester for a broader set of students than would be right now. The case numbers in Galway, and thanks to the behaviour of students and have come down, and that also makes it easier for us. So again, short answer is yes, we hope timing to be advised, and particularly as case numbers evolve to where they are right now, it's easier than it would have been. So the context of Galway different than other university. I'm always reluctant to comment on what other universities are doing, because first of all, it's different context, but secondly, when we go and investigate, we find out sometimes there are subtle differences that we're not familiar with. But certainly for our own part, the reason why we took the decision we took was because case numbers in Galway were so high in February that we felt it would be not advisable to open up campus as much as we would have liked. But now the case numbers are coming down again, and in the context of all the health and safety protocols we have in place, we would plan to open up labs more than they are right now. Timing to be advised.
Okay, thank you. Roisin, do you want to ask the last one?
Yeah, so is it possible for students to get recordings of, for example, second year lectures to help first years choose their modules for the following year?
That's a good question, good idea. Yeah, we could look at that. I think there was a very good suggestion at the last meeting, which we'll pick up on, is having induction for second years again, if you're for people going into second year, because first year induction didn't really turn out as we expected. So that's a great idea. We could even an introductory, using the technology we have right now for introduction to modules, and or using some of the lectures that are recorded. A great idea, and we'll bring that through the colleges. I think it'd be very good idea, and thanks for the suggestion.
Thank you. I think that we're going to end on a good note with that question. I'd just like to thank you for your time, Kieran and Becky. And just, it's been really great. I think it's very important that we highlight how important it is to communicate between us and keep the channels open. I don't know if you want to have any final words.
Yeah, just to say thanks, and keen to keep these kind of events going, because I think it's important. I really miss. Generally, if I was on campus and I had an hour or half an hour, I'd walk across campus and I'd meet students, and sometimes students would tell me what's going on and what's not. I miss that, and this is a good opportunity for us to meet students in a different forum. So I'd really like to thank Pádraig and Roisin and the SU for arranging it. Secondly, I think what it shows is that we're all doing our best. I think it's, and we may disagree at times on what the best decision is, but we are doing our best, and there is a human face behind what is called the university. We're all the university. I'm part of it. Becky is part of it, and we're all human beings trying to struggle through life together. This is a real part of that journey, and I think this year has been a very meaningful part, a very profound part of that journey. And I really appreciate, to go then to the third point, I really appreciate the opportunity to engage with a very dynamic and vibrant and active students' union. When I came to Galway first, one of the things I said is that we are part of society, not apart from it. And what that means is that sometimes, as in society, we disagree. We should disagree. If we disagree, we should do so respectfully. But we will disagree, and we'll have honest debate. We'll have, sometimes it gets messy. Sometimes it's in the public domain. That all is part of what's normal in a university and in society. And I really appreciate the activism of the Students' Union this year. Pádraig, Roisin, Emma, all our SU representatives, and yourselves as students. It's because we're not on campus, it's really important that we keep the communication channels going. And what I've said a number of times this evening, send me an email and we'll follow up on it. And sometimes that may look like, and I see from the chat, that might look like an empty promise. What I do then is I send it on, I said it before, I send it on to the people who are engaged with that, who know the detail, and I expect them to reply. Sometimes they CC me, sometimes they don't. If you don't get a response within about 10 days or 2 weeks, come back to me, because we would expect to respond to your issues as you raise them. And that's the promise I'll make on finishing, that we are doing our best together. This is a journey, a really, really challenging year, particularly for our students. And we want to support you through that journey, and we will do so as much as possible. And this has been a great, great opportunity for that. And thank you. Gurmíl maith agus ucht bhelling in ucht agus Gurmagat the Roisin agus the Pádraig agus Emma agus Cuilegan a bhí buinte le seán ucht mar bhí sé tarmhaigh domsa tasúgam. It was useful for me, helpful for me in knowing what student issues are. I hope it was for you too. And we look forward to continue the conversation, maybe having another one of these maybe in April, early May. And at that stage, hopefully we'll see what next year, particularly we might have a better sense of what next year might look like.
Thank you, and have a good evening, everybody.
Thanks very much. Goodbye.